Well, Egypt's embattled president is scheduled to address the nation today as his opponents promise more chaos in the streets. Violent protests lasted through the night in Cairo. Egypt's health ministry says 4 people were killed in clashes between supporters and opponents of President Mohamed Morsi.
Riot police tried to separate the two sides but failed to halt the fighting. Along with those killed, a government spokesman said around 350 were injured as the clashes turned into running battles. This opposition demonstrator complains Islam does not allow for this. They're following Islam in name only. The army says they're protecting the law, but in fact they're only protecting the Muslim Brotherhood.
Stones, petrol bombs, pro- and anti-Morsi protesters clash at the gates of the presidential palace. Hundreds of Egyptians ignore anti-riot police. The barricades used to separate both camps are useless. For now, none of them are willing to back down. For the opposition, there's no way they'll let Mohamed Morsi and the Muslim Brothers impose a new constitution based on the Sharia law. Morsi supporters, however, are in favour of a referendum on the constitution scheduled on the 15th of December. The government says it's willing to consider the opposition's demands, but only after the vote takes place.
Islamists backing Morsi called for a rally on Wednesday at the presidential palace in Cairo. They're responding to an anti-government demonstration the previous day. The president's supporters removed tents set up by the opposition. Secular groups and young people surged toward the palace. The two sides fought each other with firebombs, rocks and sticks. Morsi plans to hold a referendum on the draft constitution on December the 15th. The opponents are against a hasty approval of the draft by the Islamist-dominated assembly.
The situation outside the presidential palace and the area around it is still very tense. We're hearing that members and supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood and supporters of the President Mohamed Morsi want to stage a sit-in and set up tents at the walls of the presidential palace as they see it to protect the president. Meanwhile, there are calls for more protests by the opposition to take place on Thursday and Friday. All of this coming as there is news that Mohamed Morsi, the president, will be addressing the nation sometime on Thursday. The question now is what he can say in order to pacify both his opponents and the supporters out on the streets. And also, as we are hearing that there are people who have been killed in these clashes and also hundreds of people wounded, the stakes are getting higher, the anger on the street is increasing, and the window of opportunity for Mohamed Morsi to offer some sort of concession to calm the fury on the street is closing very quickly.
They're also calling for the draft constitution, which is being put to a referendum later this month, to be dropped, saying its articles are heavily influenced by Sharia law. In the face of several high-profile resignations, there are signs that the government is trying to find a compromise over the constitution, but only after it's been voted on.
Door is open for people to reach an agreement and to come with initiatives and alternatives.
That's not good enough for the opposition, who've laid the blame for the strife firmly at the president's door.
What is happening at the presidential palace at the moment, the violence, is an announcement from the country and from the president that they do not practice their responsibility towards the protection of the country.
Egyptians have suffered much since the Arab Spring first began 2 years ago. As they take stock on Thursday, many will be wondering where they go from here.